The Astor family once ruled over New York's high society as one of the wealthiest and most influential families to ever call the United States home. But what happened to their fortune? Hi everyone, Ken here. Today we are exploring Vincent Astor's townhouse and uncovering the end of the Astor era. Hit that like button to let YouTube know you appreciate historic homes, and let's begin exploring this house. This video is sponsored by Victorian Society in America. More on them later. In 1891, Vincent Astor was born into one of the wealthiest families in the United States. His grandmother, the Mrs. Astor, ruled over New York's high society, which was known as the 400, and his father, John Jacob Astor IV, controlled the family fortune, which included massive real estate holdings all around New York and beyond. Vincent grew up in the family's Manhattan double mansion along Fifth Avenue, one of the most palatial homes to ever grace Central Park. Here he enjoyed a childhood amongst marble halls, rubbing shoulders with presidents and titans of industry as they attended balls hosted by his grandmother in the double mansion shared ballroom. In 1908, while Vincent was still a teenager, Mrs. Astor passed away and his father combined both sides of the duplex to create one of Manhattan's largest mansions. The palatial estate was completely renovated and quickly gained a reputation as being one of the finest houses in the world. However, his father's days in the mansion were numbered. In 1912, while Vincent was attending college at Harvard, John Jacob Astor IV boarded the Titanic for its maiden voyage, never to return. As news of his passing reached New York, 20-year-old Vincent learned that he had inherited the family fortune, estimated to be worth as much as $200 million, the modern equivalent of about $6.5 billion when adjusting for inflation alone. Now one of the most eligible bachelors on the planet and the patriarch of the Astor family, Vincent dropped out of college. He began courting Helen Dinsmore Huntington, and the couple tied the knot just 2 years later. Unfortunately, Vincent had been stricken by a case of the mumps, which left him unable to have children, and without a family to think of nor any reason to work, he began searching for other ways to occupy his time. The following year, in 1915, he enlisted with the Naval Reserve and was called to active duty less than 2 years later in 1917 to serve in the New York Naval Militia. Vincent was close friends with future President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who suggested that if Vincent wanted to see some real action that he should volunteer for active duty, which is exactly what he did. Vincent not only volunteered himself, but also his private yacht, the USS Noma. While he was deployed, not only did he survive striking a mine, but also managed to capture a German U-boat as it was planting more mines. In 1919, now known as Lieutenant Astor, Vincent returned stateside as a decorated war hero. A few years later, in 1926, he sold the family's Fifth Avenue mansion to a developer who had it torn down. In that same year, Vincent began purchasing houses in the less fashionable area of Manhattan around East 80th Street and 79th Street to demolish, with plans to build his own mansion. He hired architect Mott B. Schmidt to draw inspiration from 18th century English architecture to design for him a neoclassical city mansion. Unlike his father's house, Vincent's would be restrained and comfortable. While it was designed to be considerably smaller than the house he had grown up in, it was still large enough to host parties and fashionable enough to entertain esteemed guests. When it was finished in 1928, Vincent Astor's townhouse was praised for its simple and timeless appearance. Before we head inside, a quick word about the sponsor of today's video, the Victorian Society in America. Are you obsessed with historic architecture? Have you ever wanted to go beyond reading and learning to actually experience historically and architecturally significant sites? With the Victorian Society in America, you can travel to American cities and tour exceptional 19th century buildings, and pursue learning in internationally acclaimed summer study programs in Chicago, Newport, and London. Join the Victorian Society in America this May for an educational tour in Baltimore. The itinerary is packed with exciting visits to key architectural sites, landscapes, and artistic gems. Click the link in the video description to visit victoriansociety.org to register today. Your architectural adventure starts here. Thank you, Victorian Society in America, for sponsoring today's video. Now let's begin exploring this house. After passing through the vestibule, we arrive in the entrance hall, facing a fireplace with a grand staircase off to the side. Let's head through the opening before we go upstairs. This leads us to the dining room, finished out with rich wood panels and a checkered marble floor. Once upon a time, this photo was erroneously labeled as the dining room, so if you are already familiar with the mansion, this might be new for you. Making our way up the grand staircase, we can look up to find a leaded glass skylight soaring above wall murals and marble floors. To one side we find the library with built-in bookshelves and simple but refined wall paneling. To the other side, we head down a hallway with barrel-vaulted ceilings and open double doors into the living room. The living room is the largest room in the house, with a south-facing bay window to allow an ample natural light. When the Astors were entertaining, the furniture could be cleared and the space could double as a ballroom. The upper two floors were divided for his and hers living, with Vincent's and his wife's bedrooms on separate floors. Their bathrooms were considered state-of-the-art at the time of construction and decorated with colorful murals. While living at the townhouse, the world once again became unstable and Vincent was ready to volunteer his services. Now the president, FDR sent Vincent on an intelligence-gathering mission to Japan in 1938 aboard his new private yacht. Then as World War II broke out, Vincent was given the title of commander and area controller for New York, where he used his position in the banks to gather intelligence on enemy spending and account activity. Eventually he was promoted to captain and decorated with various military awards, including the World War II Victory Medal. Backing up, in the heat of World War II, Vincent and Helen had divorced in 1940, and he had remarried Mary Benedict Cushing in that same year. They sold their townhouse in 1943 and moved into an apartment, following which Vincent went on a selling spree. His family had held the same income properties for several generations and had gained a reputation for being slumlords. Vincent began offloading these properties and building new apartments with modern amenities, along with parks to accompany them. 10 years later, he and Mary divorced on the condition that Mary find for him a replacement wife, which she did. Not even a month after the divorce was finalized, Vincent married Brooke Russell. Now approaching the end of his life, and with no children to inherit the family fortune, Vincent and Brooke formed a pact to donate all of their wealth. When he passed away in 1959, the entirety of his fortune was left to the Vincent Astor Foundation, and several of his properties were donated to good causes, including his country estate known as Ferncliff, which was left to the benefit of Benedictine Hospital. Brooke continued to live well, but she honored Vincent's wishes, devoting her life to philanthropic work. For funding the arts, hospitals, zoos, libraries, and dozens of other causes, she was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1998. When Brooke Astor, the last Mrs. Astor, passed away in 2007 at the age of 105, the Astor era officially ended. While many of the Astor's mansions have been torn down over the years, Vincent Astor's townhouse continues to stand to this day. What did you think about the townhouse? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section, and while you're there, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an exciting episode of This House.